The football gods are definitely against us at flag football over at Traction. Rained out again. I don't know how many games we have to make up right now. We were going to play 2 last night to make. I think we have 6 makeup. We've only played 1 time. Played 1 time. The season's been open a month.
You can't play a game. How many would you play in a row? How many do you get
3.
away with? Triple header?
Yeah. I mean, that third one would be tough, but
orange slices and a Capri
10,
Sun,
bro.
they'll be fine.
We can run all day.
Yeah.
Ross Dellenger covers college football for Sports Illustrated. Very well connected down here in Baton Rouge. Very much looking forward to the piece of him and Kim Mulkey as he had an inside look at the LSU women's basketball program under the leadership of the Hall of Famer Kim Mulkey in her first season. And she's got new offices being built over there in the athletic admin building. She's got hopefully some additions to the PMAC coming here over the next couple of seasons. And she's probably going to put a pretty competitive group on the floor in year 1. We'll also talk to Delly about the state of the LSU football program. It's good to have you back, man. How are you?
Good, Jordy. How you doing?
Doing good. Tuscaloosa last weekend, right?
Yeah, Alabama Ole Miss. I got to see the popcorn game.
that didn't work out well for old Lane. Hell of an environment. What did you learn in that one?
I think learned what we kind of knew, right? That Alabama is probably, even though Florida gave them a run down there, and I was at that one too a few weeks ago, that Alabama is head and shoulders probably above anybody else in the SEC aside from Georgia, and probably head and shoulders above anybody else nationally aside from Georgia. So that's right now what it looks like. And then the other thing I learned, obviously, is that, Ole Miss is, because I really thought the game would be close, especially given what happened last year. Ole Miss has a better team this year. And last year, kept with them. It ended up being a 2-touchdown game, but it ended up scoring like 48 points against Alabama last season. And I just thought it would be a better game, and it's pretty clear that, again, Alabama's just a lot better than everybody else around them, especially in their division in the West.
Where, from the Alabama-Georgia standpoint, do you see anybody competing with them? Is there anybody that can run with them that you've seen up to this point?
Not really. Not that I've seen. I don't. Iowa obviously has a big test this weekend against Penn State at home in a big game. So that's certainly a big one. I don't know if Iowa has the skill players, and kind of every year you ask yourself that, does Iowa have the skill players to match up with the elite of college football? I don't know that they do. Penn State might. That's certainly a team to watch. I kind of think Iowa's going to win that game at home this weekend. They don't make mistakes. They're a really solid team. It's hard to say Cincinnati, if you're going to go through them team by team. Cincinnati would be the next one. And I don't, the quarterback is great. They have a solid defense. But again, the horses and the skill players to run with the teams like Alabama, I don't necessarily expect them to have. And then you kind of start going down the list, like Oklahoma, and I mean, we've all seen Oklahoma. I think as my colleague wrote, Pat 40 for the last couple of weeks, are the biggest fraud in college football. I mean, they have barely won some games, really tight games, haven't really looked great at all in any game. It seems like certainly haven't played a full half of a solid, strong full half of football. So it's just hard. Again, it's hard to see them, running with the Alabamas. And then Ohio State lost at home to Oregon, and Oregon lost to Stanford. It's tough, man. It's really tough. It feels like we have more parity in college football this season than ever before, but at the very top, it's the same, the one or two teams. But we at least might have some couple of different teams in the playoff than we normally have had. The problem is, I don't think those two maybe new teams can keep pace with the two other teams that we're talking about.
You mentioned how there's a little bit more parity in the league, and doesn't it set up for? I mean, obviously, in this 4-team construct, the way it is, it seems like it'll be Georgia has a chance to play Alabama in the SEC championship, then turn around and be in the playoff regardless. Correct?
Absolutely. I'd you could right now you could there's a lot of ball to be played, but you could see Alabama and Georgia meeting as undefeated teams in the SEC championship game, and as number 1 and number 2 ranked teams, in the loser being in the playoff, you'll probably be in the 2 or 3 seed in the playoff, and the winner being obviously the 1 seed in the playoff, and then you'd have 2 other teams. And I think there's a good chance that one of the other teams is an undefeated Big Ten championship team, or even a 1-loss Big Ten championship team, because that seems to be far and away the second best league this year. And so then you have the 4th spot, right? That could be fought over. And I don't know. There's a lot of teams there, right? I know we discussed Oklahoma. There's an Oklahoma. There's a Oregon, and of course there's a Cincinnati. And I think this year is the year that maybe we see a Group of 5 team in, and this year is the year that we probably don't see an ACC team in the playoff.
Ross Dellenger joining us here. He is from Sports Illustrated, one of the college football faces and pins that you know very well, covering the sport. It would be interesting to see what an expanded playoff would look like this season.
It would. I take a look. I started in week 3 every week. Every Monday, I kind of look at the current standings in college football and put together a 12-team bracket based on the proposed format, expansion format from over the summer, and it's been real interesting. It poses some tough it had some tough debates, on who the and also I will say it really kind of doing this every week. It really has taught me a lot and kind of has prepared me of what to expect, and has really exposed some issues with the 12-team format. Honestly, you have, the last 2, 3, even 4 teams in, you're scratching your head going, why in the heck are they in a playoff? What are we doing? Why would they be in a postseason? And then you have some rematches that you can't really avoid, especially in the quarterfinals. You'd have rematches of games we already played. So it's funny. I kind of was sold on the 12-team. The conference commissioners had sold me on the 12-team playoff because I'd always been kind of an 8-team guy, and they kind of sold me and convinced me that 12 teams was the way to go and made the most sense. In a lot of ways it did, but when you start doing it and seeing how it would work, you start coming up with a lot of rematches and a lot of teams that maybe don't belong. It's just and then I'm almost going back to my 8 teams would probably be enough.
It doesn't matter if the playoff was 350 teams this year. I don't know if LSU would get in. What do you make of the state of LSU football? First time they lose to Auburn at home since 1999. The seat felt like it was warm for O going into the season. It ratcheted up after UCLA cooled down over the last 2 weeks, and it is hot as hell right now going into Kentucky. How do you feel about the state of this program where it is right now?
Well, it's obviously in a not a great situation. And when I watch a LSU football team for years now, maybe even decades, they've always done 2 things really well. They've run the football. They always could run the football. And number 2, they've defended pretty well. And while this team its real issue isn't necessarily defense, we know what happened last year, right? And the issue was defense. And this year it's the running game. So it's those 2 things that LSU has done so well for so many years. Over the last 2 years have been not just below par, right? But like one of the worst units in the nation. I mean, last year defensively, one of the worst units in the nation. And this year's rushing offense is one of the worst units in the nation. And it's just it's been kind of hard to watch that, and you just kind of scratch your head. And how did it get to this point? And you had to have that game last Saturday. It's a home game against a first-year coach and a team that had just had to come back to beat I think an FCS team the week before. You just felt like you had to have that game to get momentum and maybe get to the 7-8 win mark. And now you're staring down the barrel of a 4-8, 5-7 kind of situation.
We have seen Scott Woodward in control of football hires, and he is a big game hunter. Speculation, of course, right now, this job is still filled by Ed Orgeron. It feels like there's going to be movement on it at some point. Do you get a feel of just kind of early on here, any names to watch out for? I'm not asking for a list or who's going to get the gig, but if it were to open up, Scott Woodward, LSU, is there anybody that makes sense?
Well, I think you nailed that. He is a big game hunter. Scott is he goes after the top. You could just look at his track record, and that's been the case. He paid Jimbo Fisher $7.5 million and gave him a 10-year contract, plucking him from Florida State while Scott was at A&M. Before that, he landed the guy that nobody thought would leave Boise State, Chris Peterson, and then this past year is one of the best examples. Went to Baylor and got Kim Mulkey, three-time national championship women's basketball coach. So he goes for the top. And in the top of the sport, the top, right? There's just a handful of names. And, one of them is obviously the guy he hired at A&M, Jimbo. And he's got a contract with no buyout. He's also got a team that might lose 5 games this year. Then you move to the guy who's in Jacksonville coaching the NFL team, who I'm sure would have gotten a call or LSU would have put out feelers before this weekend. But now what happened last weekend probably rules him out of any college job. Certainly a job at a school that is dealing with Title IX issues. And you go to some guys who stepped away from the game, like a Bob Stoops or Chris Peterson. And from what I understand, Chris Peterson's not interested in returning to football right now. And I don't know Bob Stoops' situation. I don't even know if Woodward would be interested in that. But certainly he's a guy that a lot of schools would want to come and coach their programs and sit at the top. And then, you go to the next rung, right, of candidates out there who are some of the big names right now you hear thrown around for the USC job and other jobs, like Luke Fickell at Cincinnati, James Franklin at Penn State, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Those would probably be the next run in my mind of a list. And then you've maybe even got the next rung, right, where you have guys like Bill O'Brien, Alabama's offensive coordinator, who went to Penn State and been in the NFL. You got Billy Napier at down the road at Lafayette, Matt Campbell up there at Iowa State. So that would be just off the top of my head a list of kind of 3 rungs. And again, Scott is a guy who probably starts at the top.
How much? I know that you're not down here on the beat every day like you were, but you're still around college football and have great relationships. How much does this feel like the end of Les Miles?
Well, it's funny because the end of the Les Miles, his teams usually did the things that we just talked about, the 2 things, right, that we just talked about. They always could run the football. If they couldn't run the football, they still tried. And they got enough yards where they looked like they could run the football statistically. And they played pretty good defense. I mean, they're toward the end of his tenure, we all know what the problem was, right? It was passing the football and not modernizing the offense. So on the field, it looks a lot different. The way it's ended. Off the field, like you said, I'm not there as much. I don't know within the facility what's happening. I know that, late in the Les's tenure, there was so much frustration about the offense in the building that it had caused, enough issues. And I don't know what the situation is necessarily in the building, how it would compare to that right now. But obviously, when what I'm fascinated by, and look, I'll be honest, I took a trip to the administration tower while I was in town visiting Kim Mulkey and snooped around as best I could. I didn't really find out any information, but I'll tell you.
Delly's here.
Erase the whiteboard.
Yeah, right.
There's some people in that tower that really just scratch their heads on how can you not get a play in an adequate amount of time.
Sure.
And that has been some. And again, I covered the LSU UCLA game. I only was able to watch the fourth quarter of the Auburn game, so I haven't seen LSU week to week. But apparently, that's been an issue, and I can just sense the frustration in that.
Ross Dellenger here. Last one, I'll get you out of here. Thanks as always for your time. You spent some time with Kim Mulkey. You mentioned it. You were down here in Baton Rouge earlier this week. We had her on Monday, and actually, Kramer Robertson just got the word. He's been called up to the travel squad for the St. Louis Cardinals. He was on the taxi squad. Now he was actually dressed out and taking BP with St. Louis last night at Chavez Ravine at Dodger Stadium. So great to see a former Tiger and Kramer Robertson getting his shot in the major leagues right here during playoff time. I know that Kim Mulkey is very excited about that. Her and I were trading some text messages about the news last night. But you spent time with her. People are fired up about her around LSU women's basketball. Ticket sales are soaring. People are looking for new energy. She is going to bring it. What did you learn about the Hall of Famer in the time that you spent with her?
Yeah, well, my relationship with Kim goes back to Kramer when I covered the baseball team for the Advocate. It was Kramer played, and we got to establish a little bit of relationship with her. It was great seeing her again, and spent basically the whole day of Monday with her. And she's a character, right?
Yeah.
She's you don't have to ask too many questions to get Kim talking and get Kim going. And it was great to kind of spend time with her. And she's it might take 2, 3, 4 years or so, but that woman is determined, and her track record proves that how incredible a coach she is. So I'm sure she'll have the Tigers back going very soon. And it was good to spend some time with her. And then she kind of found the news out a little bit while I was with her about Kramer, and so it was pretty exciting. She's certainly pumped up for her son, and that's the big time, man. It doesn't get much bigger than that. Playoff baseball, you're in the clubhouse on the team practicing and all that stuff. So, it obviously made my time with her a little better. She was in a great mood for sure.
I bet. Long time coming for Kramer, and I know that Coach has been on top of that and wondering why that has not happened for sure. Yeah, she's been pretty hell to deal with, I'd imagine, for the AAA affiliate for the St. Louis Cardinals. Where are you at this weekend? I know Texas-Oklahoma plays. What game you check it out? You going in person?
No, I am home.
Nice.
So I've been on the road for about a week, so I'm going to stay home and watch it. It's a little bit of in a way, a light week. Obviously, yeah, you do have OU and Texas, a big game up in Iowa with Penn State. Pat Forty will go to that, but I'll chill at home and probably be back on the road next week.
Good for it, man. Thanks for the time this morning. It was good to have you down in Baton Rouge again. We'll talk soon.
All right, Jordy. See you.
All right, man. There he is. Ross Dellenger checking in this morning from Sports Illustrated.